Welcome to the new edition of the ABBA League magazine as we come back with our show just before the climax of the season. As the four best teams squared off in the playoff, it will be the first time the teams play in the best-of-5 format already in the semi-final, and tensions will of course run high as only the finalists will get the EuroLeague ticket. Especially that will be the case in the semi-final between Zvezda and Partizan, as they both desperately wish to play in Europe's most elite competition, while on the other hand, Buducnost wants to re-enter the EuroLeague after 12 years of absence. But in order to achieve that, they need to dispatch Cedevita, who will also be very eager to continue playing in Europe's prime competition. They are, of course, twice the losing finalists of the ABBA League and will try hard to get the step ahead. Start with the news. The coaches and the fans voted Megalex's Nikola Jokic as the league's MVP for the regular season. The 20-year-old power forward was already the league's best-rated player, was scoring 15.4 points per game, which is the league's third best average, while being the best rebounder with 9 odd rebounds per game. Logically, he was also voted as the best young player of the season. And the league's best starting 5 was also announced and is comprised of the following players. Krka's Malcolm Armstead takes the point guard position. In the end, he was the league's best scorer with 17.6 points per game. The best shooting guard of the season is Buducnost's Suacehovic, who added almost 7 rebounds per game to his 12.6 points per game contribution. Sasha Paulovic keeps them company on the small forward position, as he was Partizan's best scorer with 13.3 points per game in the 15 games he featured in for the black and white this season. We might also add that Partizan only lost 3 times in those 15 games. The best power forward of the ABBA League is Milan Machvan, Partizan's second best scorer and rebounder, and arguably the strongest figure in Partizan's comeback this season. And the best center of the Adriatic elite is Boban Marjanovic, who, as the season before, was making his playing minutes count like no other player in the league, probably in Europe too. And as expected, the best coach was voted for the second time running Dejan Radonjic, the main man from Zvezda, who was also able to lead his team to #1 place after the regular season and was of course accountable for 24 wins and only 2 defeats. Now let's take a look at both semi-finals. Of course, the biggest one will be between Partizan and Zvezda, with Zvezda with the home court advantage, which will play the first 2 games in front of their own hands, and of course then that they will switch hands. And now let's take a look into Zvezda's camp first. After last season, they received the chance of playing in the EuroLeague after 15 long years after Cibona had waived that right. The red and white performed well among the European elite, while in the ABBA League they were setting new standards as they tasted defeat only after 21 rounds when Krka took their measure, rather surprisingly. Zvezda has set 2 records this season. The first one is the 20 consecutive wins. The second one is the overall score of 24 wins and only 2 defeats, the second one coming in the eternal derby against Partizan. 2 losses are actually matched by Union Olimpia from the opening season of the competition, but back then it was only comprised of 12 teams. The team had also progressed among the best 16 teams in Europe, where all hope of reaching the Final Four was lost only 3 rounds before the end of the regular season. And that, of course, ranks their European season as successful, while in the meantime they were able to secure the first silverware of the season as they won the domestic cup. The most important games of the season are of course still to follow, as they will be aiming for both the final appearance in chase of the EuroLeague ticket and the ABBA League title itself, which they have of course never won thus far. Partizan has stabilized as a team after a poor start, and now it is a formidable adversary. We were the best team during the regular season and also have a home court advantage, and we need to take those chances if we want to feature in the final. Partizan is, of course, the most prolific team in the history of the ABA League, and they, of course, had the 6 titles to prove it. But last year they were deprived of playing in the EuroLeague due to that dramatic semi-final loss to Cedevita. That was the prelude to a slower start to the season, as they were unable to reinforce their ranks in time, and it was an unfamiliar sight of them winning only twice in the first 6 rounds. Then the new players started arriving, as Luka Bogdanovic, Milan Marčvan and Sasha Pavlovic all returned to the club, as did their captain Dragan Milosavljevic after a lengthy spell of the sidelines. 2 rounds before the end of the season they have also acquired Josh Okonjon, as the American fills the void at the point guard position, which was a problem for Partizan during the whole season. Arguably, Partizan were the best team towards the end of the regular season, but the defeat against Buducnost in the last round had cost them dearly, as it plunged them into 4th spot, which meant Zvezda was the adversary in the quest of returning to the EuroLeague, which of course was the tougher of the all 3 other choices. Well, the derby games are always tough and are often decided by the odd mistake or two. We will have to be extremely focused on both ends of the court if we want to book our place in the final. We have to remain calm no matter what happens. This year both teams took a win apiece, so let's remember how things unfolded in both encounters during the regular season. Partizan had already lost 4 games prior to this encounter, but was steadily playing better and was also the one opening this game better, taking a 5-0 lead. But Zvezda replied instantly, as Boban Marjanovic made sure they were in front by 6-5, and by the time Jaka Blažić scored his first points of the match, Zvezda had rounded up a 10-0 partial. The black and white then equaled the score to 12 when Vanja Marinkovic scored for 3. Then the next 2 3-pointers were scored by Branko Lazic, as Zvezda opened up a 6-point lead. The red and white were also in front come the end of the first period, which finished with 19-14. Then an unfortunate situation for the visitors, as Edo Muric damaged his shoulder, couldn't play again in this game, and after that Zvezda reached a double-digit lead for the first time in the game, as Charles Jenkins was successful. Zvezda was already 13 points to the good when Mike Tsirbes rounded up a 13-1 partial for the hosts. The lead was 14 points when Branko Lazic scored again. It seemed the half would end with 35-22 when Milenko Tepic was successful just 6 seconds before the end of the half, but Marcus Williams then scored in the last second to give Zvezda their highest advantage thus far of 16 points. Just like in the first half, Partizan started the second one better, as Marinkovic closed the gap to 12. Zvezda's reply was a run of 5 successive points, and the lead was again 15, as their captain Luka Mitrovic was successful. The hosts were soon 17 points in front when Jenkins scored 6 points in a row. He was also the one who set the result after 30 minutes of play, when it was 57-36. At the start of the last period, Zvezda opened up a 22-point lead after Nemanja Dangubic scored for 3. But after that, Partizan would find some rhythm, mainly through Milan Marčvan, who started a run of 11 consecutive points for the black and white, and after Tepic's points, Partizan was behind by 11. Branko Lazic then stopped that run from the visitors with his 3rd 3-pointer. And after that, Partizan managed to close the gap to 8 when Mihailo Andrić scored from distance. After Milutino's and Tepic's points, Partizan cut the deficit to 7 points, but it was a little too late, as Branko Lazic was again instrumental in keeping the hosts in front a little over a minute before time. And that is this action. The game ended with 76-67 to Crvena Zvezda, as they confirmed their unbeaten status against their fiercest rivals. Sasha Pavlovic was the first player to score in this derby, while at the other end it was Jaka Blažić with a 3. Pavlovic was responsible for the first 8 Partizan points, after which the home team was in front by 8-5, but the teams were soon on equal terms when Stefan Jovic scored Zvezda's third 3-pointer to make it 15 points apiece. Crvena Zvezda was in front by 2 points after the first 10 minutes when Jenkins made it 17-15. Then Dragan Milosavljevic scored Partizan's first 3-pointer to make it 22-19. But Crvena Zvezda's response was to score 3 times from distance, with Marcus Williams precise twice, and the visitors escaped to a 6-point lead. Zvezda was in front by 7 points when Nikola Kalinic was next in line to score from distance. But that prompted Partizan to respond in time, mainly through Milan Mačvan, who scored 10 in a row to give the lead back to the black and white. The home team was in front by 3 points after the first 20 minutes. Mačvan continued with a good display in the third quarter, and by scoring 5 in a row made sure Partizan took a double-digit lead for the first time in the match. And when Milenko Tepic contributed 5 points, it meant Partizan had escaped to a 16-point lead. Stefan Jovic made sure the leading team of the league wouldn't fall too much behind by making it 53-41. But still, Partizan was 17 points to the good come the end of the third period, in which Božo Džumić was the last player to score in it, with Partizan winning the third quarter by 21-8. The visitors mounted an attempt at the start of the last period by scoring twice from distance and cutting the deficit to 12, and that got followed by a few exchanges at the free throw line. It wasn't really attractive though in this time, but then Nikola Milutinov was responsible for the best action of the game when he dunked nicely to put Partizan back to a 16-point lead. And this is the last point of the game. Boris Dalo scoring for the first and only time of the game. Zvezda lost for the second time this season, while Partizan continues their excellent run, which now counts for 10 wins on the trot. And now let's take a look at the second semi-final, where Buducnost and Cedevita will lock horns. And Buducnost is one of the founding members of the ABA League, but they had never won the competition. But for this year, the Montenegrin champion had assembled a strong team with reinforcements such as Omar Cook, Ojer Reynolds, Vladimir Dašić, Ivan Paunic and Darko Planinic, all experienced internationals, while at the start of the season, Aleksandar Čapin had left the club. In spite of a very good start to the season, where it seemed they would clearly establish themselves as the second-best team of the competition, their season was somewhat marked by the frequent oscillations. That said, they did secure second position in the end, but it was largely due to their diligence in acquiring Boris Sauvic, who had turned out to be a real reinforcement. It's for the first time in the history of the competition, Buducnost finishes second after the regular season and will have home court advantage in the semi-final and a real chance for them to make the comeback to the EuroLeague after 12 years. It's true, we do have a certain advantage, but we need to prove it on the court. The coaches expect us to be ready to take a battle, and we are. I would like to use this opportunity to call upon our fans to turn up and give us their support, because it means a lot to us. Both teams have their respective advantages. I'm certain we will succeed in translating that into our game, and with our defensive performance in the end, we will prevail. And how about Cedevita? Last year they beat Partizan in the semi-final and consequently reached the EuroLeague after 2 years of absence. This year the team from Zagreb decided on another concept, as they engaged no Americans, with Nemanja Gordic being the only foreigner in the team, which meant Jasmin Repeša gave bigger roles to the young and still inexperienced Marko Arapovic, Lovro Mazalin and Carlos Ganec. In spite of the lack of experience, Cedevita was able to record 3 wins among the European elite and then continue their European season in the Eurocup, where they reached the final 16 phase, eventually going out to Gran Canaria. Problems with injuries to their key players Marko Tomas and Rokolini Ukic have tempered their season with oscillations, but nevertheless they were able to secure 3rd spot after the 26 rounds of the regular season. In the meantime, they have won Croatian Cup competition, and they're also the only team who managed to beat their semi-final rival on both occasions. The team which will succeed in performing collectively will win in the end. No game will be easy, and I think the details will be crucial, and that no match will finish with more than 10 points difference. It is hard to say who will win. It might go down to individual glimpses of brilliance. We know that they are physically very strong in offense, and it will be tough as they have some experienced players, especially in the point guard position. But we have our game plan too. The one who will succeed in dictating the tempo of the play will have the edge. And now let's take a look how both games in the regular season unfolded. The team from Zagreb, fresh from an unexpected loss to Zadar, opened the scoring in this match through Miro Bilan, and at the other end it was another tall player, Darko Planinic, his great rival of course from last year when he played for Cibona. Then the visitors scored 2 consecutive 3-pointers, and Tomislav Zupčić had put them into an 8-2 lead. A bit later, Cedevita was able to repeat that feat, and after Nemanja Gordic scored from distance, they were in front by 8. Then Suat Čehović scored the next 5 points, after which Buducnost was only trailing the visitors by 2. But again, Cedevita fired twice from distance to give the hosts new headaches, as they again escaped to an 8-point lead. At this point, the guests hadn't missed a shot for 3 from their 6 attempts. At the start of the second period, Buducnost was quick to close the gap to 2 points after Bojan Subotic was successful, but Cedevita again managed to keep the hosts at bay as Miro Bilan scored twice in a row and dunked to make it 35-30. Then Čehović managed to equal the score for the first time since the opening of the match. And then the home team took the lead as well when Nikola Ivanovic scored 5 in a row to set the result of the first half, which ended with 41-38. Cedevita opened the third period with another 3 as Tomislav Zupčić equaled the score to 41, and after that Suat Čehović equaled the score for the last time in the game when he made it 43-43. That was followed by 10 consecutive points from the visitors, and when Rokolini Ukic scored, Cedevita equaled their highest advantage of 8. Cedevita won the third period by 17-8, and the result after 13 minutes was 55-49. At the start of the last 10 minutes, Cedevita took a double-digit lead for the first time in the game as Luka Babic rounded up a 16-4 partial for their guests from Zagreb. Then Aleksa Popovic scored 7 in a row to close the gap to 5, and then the home team managed to cut the deficit to a single point when Vitkovac scored from the free-throw line. And the next offense, Nemanja Gordic with a lucky basket, after which Cedevita was 4 points to the good. After that, the team from Zagreb scored another 2 3-pointers, and when Ramljak succeeded in scoring from open play for the first time in the match, the gap was again 10. J.R. Reynolds was playing well in the last quarter, in which he scored 8 points, and with this action he closed the gap to 8. But Buducnost couldn't come any closer. It ended with 80-70, with Cedevita scoring as many as 12 3-pointers from only 15 attempts and managed to win a very difficult game away from home. No Mario Delaš or Stanko Barac for Cedevita in this one, as they took the first lead of the game from Marko Arapovic, and for the visitors it was Suat Čehović, first with a 2-pointer and then a bit later also scored for 3 and made it 6-5. Cedevita was in front by 4 when Ivan Ramljak scored his second 3, but the teams were close throughout the first period, and when Ivanovic scored his first points it was to level the score to 17. The visitors were 3 points in front after the first 10 minutes, and Reynolds rounded up a run of 7-0 for them. Cedevita started the second period better and was able to put together a run of 9 unanswered points, after which they were 6 points in front. And when Fran Pilepic scored from distance, the lead was 7 points. But soon after that, they managed to open up a double-digit lead for the first time when Miro Bilan made it 36-24. After hitting twice from distance, Buducnost managed to close the gap to 8. But Cedevita had a strong finish to the half, and when Carlos Ganec was the last player to score in it, it was to give his team the lead of 12 before entering in the second half. After the interval, the gap was 14 points when Ivan Ramljak scored, and then the visitors answered by scoring twice from distance to close the gap to 8 points. The last one courtesy of Bojan Subotic. The gap was further reduced to 6 when Savovic scored 8 in a row, but in the remaining time of the third period, Carlos Ganec scored twice, and the teams were separated by 8 points before entering the last 10 minutes of the game. Buducnost struck first in the last period by scoring 2 consecutive 3-pointers, and the lead was cut to just 3 points. Less than 4 minutes before time, Nemanja Gordic found Miro Bilan nicely, and the two combined to give Cedevita a 10-point lead back. There was some hope left for the visitors when Omar Cook scored his first 3 less than 2 minutes before time, but the decisive action of the game would be Cedevita's, as Miro Bilan found Tomislav Zupčić, and the lead was back to 8. 53 seconds before time, all doubts were cast away as Nemanja Gordic made it 77-65, and the game ended with 80-70, which is an identical result as from the first game in Podgorica. And now for the best 10 actions of this season. We normally give you 5, but this time it will be 10. Number 1, we have this alley-oop from Union Olimpia, finished off by Alen Omic. The passer was Paolo Marinelli. It will be hard to stray away from dunks in this choice. This one comes from Mike Cirbes. It was Jaka Blažić who fed him the pass, and a German centre, of course, dunking it with decisive measures. Number 8, a great counter-attack from Partizan, a great collective action, rounded off by Đorđe Gagić, who of course is not a Partizan player anymore. At number 7, we have this exclusive shot from Stefan Jovic of Crvena Zvezda in a game against Metalac. You won't see many of these coming your way. Number 6, we have a similar shot, and it was almost a game-deciding shot. In the end, Cedevita lost that game, but it did straight the game into overtime, courtesy of Nemanja Gordic. This is our number 6. At number 5, we have a member from newcoming team. It was Nikola Mališević, correct in this layup. In the last second of the game, it was a winning basket from the number 4 from Metalac. And the action of number 4 is from Michael Lee in a game against Olimpia Krka, sorry. Of course, it was Solnok. And from the second attempt, a fierce dunk from the American. This is our number 4. At number 3, Malcolm Armstead, a winning 3 from almost 9 meters, and it was an important win against Zadar. Malcolm Armstead, the league's best player, deciding this one. Number 2, another winning basket, this time from David Vojvoda. It was an amazing game from the Hungarian. He managed 36 points, which is still the best tally of the season. And this one was for the win against Igor Kea. David Vojvoda, number 2. And of course, there could be little doubt about number 1. It is this incredible shot from Blaž Mahkovic after Gregor Hrovat missed for 3. And the amazing thing is he did it again on training the second day. but that wasn't considered in the top 10 selection. But this one is, because it counted. Blaž Markovic, he with the best action of the season. And this is the timetable of all the semi-final duels. Of course, in the first one we have the Zvezda against Partizan, and the other one, Buducnost against Cedevita. And it will be the start of the unfolding of this incredible season, when the two winners will, of course, advance into the final and into the EuroLeague. And that's all for today. Join us again next time when we will have the first reports from the first two games on how the playoff will be going. Thank you for your time, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Liga!